Welcome to the Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2026 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and nycbigbookaward.com. On this episode of the Gab Talks, we will be speaking with Swedish physician Maria Ingström about her novel Restrained, A Journey Through Psychosis as a Doctor, winner of the 2026 Independent Press Award in the Psychiatry Psychology category. Restrained details Maria's personal experience with psychosis, coercive care, involuntary restraint. More than a memoir, Restrained is a call to action for more compassionate mental health care system by utilizing Finland's open dialogue model. It's a raw account of the trauma, resilience, recovery, and hope. An essential read for healthcare professionals, family members to build a more compassionate society where those in crisis are supported in a healthy, positive manner. Maria has worked as a doctor for over 20 years and is currently a specialist in general medicine. She currently works in the correctional system. She complements her medical knowledge with training in hypnotherapy, mindful tapping, and Reiki, self-healing of the body and the mind. Restrained is published in Swedish and English. Maria joins us today from Sweden. Congratulations, Maria, and welcome to the Gab Talks.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. It really is such a pleasure. Maria, let's get started. As we mentioned in the intro, your novel is part memoir and part call to action, really for the entire healthcare community. The first half of Restrained details your very long and painful journey from psychosis, the care you received during your illness, and that journey to becoming a licensed physician. Maria, share your story with our listeners.
Yeah. It was 25 years ago now, and I had 1 year left from my medical studies. And suddenly I ended up in a different condition. I was very high in energy, you could say. I was in love and I was euphoric. And I lost contact with my body and with this reality, you could say. And I ended up in a psychiatric ward. So I was on the other side of care suddenly, not a caregiver, as a patient instead, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Patient.
And yeah.
You said that your experience with your break, your psychosis, your psychotic break and psychosis in the hospital was about 4 months long. That's a long time. You go from being a student to all of a sudden being thrust into this entirely scary, which I would imagine a new environment. And you say that you're lucky to survive, Maria. What happened?
Yeah, I was treated in 2 different hospitals. The first one was in 25 days, but there the care was quite good with the dialogue with me and my family. But it was very hard for the care to get me to calm down and to sleep. They tried with a lot of medications, like sleeping medication, antipsychotic drugs, and so on. But I couldn't sleep. And after about 10 days or something, they put me in a restrained bed. But that in the first hospital, it was like because I needed to get sleep. After about 2 weeks or something, my mother asked if she could sleep in the ward with me, and she was allowed to do that. And then I got the whole night of sleep, and the following nights I slept as well. But I also got ECT then, and the condition it changed, and I was not psychotic when it had passed about 25 days or something. So I was out of the hospital then and went back to my parents' city and so on. But in about a week, I couldn't sleep again. And then I was back in a different hospital then. And there I was put in a restraint bed right away almost. After half a day, I was put there, and for a very long time. It was almost for 10 days, and the nurse has written in the medical journal that I was dehydrated and malnourished. So I didn't get food and water as you have to when you're a person.
You were lucky to survive. Yeah, you
Yeah, I
practically
was
starved to
actually.
death.
Yeah,
Explain
and yeah.
explain Maria, the restraining, hence the cover of the book and the title of the book.
Yeah.
Right. It give us you have an incredible visual on the title. It's fascinating. So you were literally
Yeah, and it's also like this.
wow.
Yeah, so you have this restraints around your hands and ankles, and sometimes around the belly, or what you say. Yeah. So that's what you have. Yeah.
So
And many people don't believe that this is used anymore in the psychiatric care. And this was 2002, but still they use them. And also in most of the Western psychiatric care, they do that. But as I tell in the book, Iceland, for example, haven't used this type of restrainment beds for since 1932. So it's almost 100 years ago they quitted with this.
I have a question for you now. Now this experience had to have changed your sense of autonomy and identity. How did that change you as a person, being belted, being constrained, electric shock treatment? How did that change you?
Well, I have had difficult to remember this episode. So when I was better, like after 10 or 12 days in this second hospital, when I was when I could come up from this bed, and I had a walk in nature and meeting my family again, I had difficult to remember.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Even that. Yeah, so the electric shock treatment and all of the medication and my mental state also. I didn't remember, and the caregiver didn't tell me what had happened. But I knew that I was belted or restrained. Because after 4 days in this second hospital, we had a family talk, the only family talk with the doctor. And I have read in the medical journals that I express very clear that I think this treatment is wrong with the restraints and so on. But they don't listen to me, and this treatment goes on, But somehow I managed to get back. It was like 2 episodes in this hospital, and it was a restrainment for 10 days, and afterwards even 9 more days. So it was a very long time, but it was short episodes when I was let up it and down again,
I want to get into the second half of your book, but first, I understand at some point, and it was probably after the second half of your treatment, that you stopped taking the medication. As a patient, describe how then this altered your perspective about treatment plans.
Well, I didn't stop treatment first. I went on with the treatment, but I went back to my medical studies after the summer,
which is extraordinary, really.
Yeah, so extraordinary. I don't know how it worked, but
and you took your medical exams. That's incredible, actually.
Yeah. But I met a doctor there who understood that my symptoms of depression and my different personality was a side effect from the antipsychotic drugs that I had took. So she helped me taper it down and quit with that. But I have been taking lithium for 20 years, but I stopped that for 20 years, 4 or 5 years ago or something. But your question was how it has affected my way of thinking about treatment. So
Yes, your way
yes,
of thinking about treatment plans as a whole, and then we'll get into the
yeah,
second half of your book.
yeah. But I haven't been aware of this bad treatment really because I didn't remember everything, and I have just focused on getting back, to the medical work and to have children and a family and
It's a
so
full
on.
productive life.
Yeah, so I have been like, I guess, a normal doctor, using pharmaceutical treatment and so on. And for the last 10 years, I've been working in jail like a general practitioner, and I try to listen to the patients and think about the whole situation,
Yes, because you have a different perspective because you've experienced some of the things. So
yeah.
the second half of Maria, the second half of Restrained argues that psychiatry is in the middle of a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
The Finnish open dialogue model plays a very central role in your thinking. I'm sure most of our listeners are unfamiliar with it, as I was. What makes this
Yeah.
approach so fundamentally different from conventional psychiatric care?
Yeah, it's because the treatment is in the patient's homes, and it's important to get help in about 24 hours if it's possible. And the professionals are 2 or 3 people who are educated in this therapeutical model called open dialogue, and you meet together with the patient and also the family, often the network it's called. And you, as a professional, the most important thing is to listen and to listen to everyone's voices. And often you don't have to use medication, not in the acute situation and not in the long term. And the most interesting thing with it is that the result is so fantastically different from Western or traditional psychiatric care, because the results is that if you have a psychotic episode that everyone can get really, um, 3 out of 4 is back in work or study when they do follow up after 2 years, compared to traditional psychiatric care where there are 7% back in studies and work after 2 years of treatment. So that's very, very big difference. And you think that the patient is able to recover. Yeah, so
it's very family and patient centric. But you said something interesting, Maria. You said that success rates really are in acute and long term.
yeah.
Would you agree then that the open dialogue is a subjective method and it may not be effective for perhaps certain schizophrenic and psychotic patients?
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Because the model is both a treatment model and a way of organizing psychiatric care.
Okay.
And they did it, or what you say, in Tornio in Finland, and it was because they had a lot of schizophrenic people or people with like chronic psychosis, and they've been able to lower the prevalence of schizophrenia from 33 out of 100,000 people to 2 out of
Wow.
2 cases out of 100,000 people. So it's working for those people who has this.
Yeah.
this
So
diagnosis.
when it's properly implemented, the open dialogue, this dialogue between family and patient, what can we learn then about schizophrenic patients, their hallucinations, versus using these often mind-numbing medications and injections?
Yeah. What open dialogue teaches me is that the psychotic symptoms is possible to understand. And that's not what I've learned in medical school or in psychiatric care. So it's possible to understand, and you can communicate with the person even though they have hallucinations. They're still there.
They're still
Yeah, they're still there. They're not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a brain disease. Actually, I think it's a crisis reaction, and that's what I found out
Which is what happened to you. Yeah.
yeah, when I wrote this book. I understand that psychotic symptoms is something that everyone can get if the life situation becomes too difficult to handle. Yeah,
What would you say, Maria, to those folks in the healthcare profession and even patients that they're just that there's a justification for coercion, that it's for the patient's own good? What would you say?
yeah. Well, I agree that you have to have the possibility to make the person stay in the hospital to make to talk to the person and to decide what to do together with the patient. But I think it's it in Sweden we have I think we have to change the laws, because you can be in coercion for um, how long? I mean, there's no limit of
Limits.
the time you can go on with the coercion care in open care, and you can have to be able to, I mean, the doctors can decide that you should take antipsychotic drugs even if you don't want to,
Wow.
and you should, and you also must be informed that the medication is not curing the root cause, because we don't know the root
You
cause.
don't, because you're not having that open dialogue. You know, it's very interesting. I'm sure that your experience would have been vastly different, and that must be painful for you to think about. Had you not been in Sweden, it might have been a little different for you.
You mean if I was treated in Tornio in Finland or something?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I guess this is something in my journey, in my
Yes.
life journey. So I'm happy I survived. I survived, and I can tell my story, and I
Yes.
can create hope and inspiration that there are other ways to treat. So I I have worked a lot with accepting and also forgiving the system and the people who did this to me. So um, I'm not angry. Of course, I've had a lot of sadness
Of
in
course,
myself,
a lot.
and there had been a lot of tears pouring down my
I'm
eyes
sure.
during this.
But you've
work with the
channeled all
book.
that in a positive way to have a productive life. You know, Maria,
Yeah,
you mentioned something earlier, and I thought this was interesting also, that there are common misconceptions about psychosis. What is that?
yeah,
What's important for folks to understand about the symptoms and how it could affect us?
yeah. I'm not sure what you're thinking about
Well,
exactly.
you know, for
Because
example, you mentioned that
Mhm,
it could really happen
mhm.
to anyone.
Yeah, it
We're not
could.
mute.
Yeah. No, it's like that. And I mean, if you use, for example, cannabis, you can have a psychotic reaction. And if you have a sleep deprivation, this can happen. If you have some medications like cortisone treatment, there are often side effects like you can't sleep and so on. And it's possible to get hallucinations as well. So, yeah.
Wow,
A lot
that's something I would never think of. Sleep deprivation, all of that. And these are things that I think most of us, all of those kind of symptoms or experiences that happen on a daily basis, I think, to a great deal of the population. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
And but in the traditional psychiatric care, and what they are focusing on is genetics.
Mm.
Like it's like special people who get this. But I'm not of that opinion, and I've understood that even more when I studied open dialogue, because everyone actually can get this type of reaction. It's a human way to react. Yeah, and so I think this stress in the environment, stress in the life, and the knowing of yourself, and to take care of yourself with sleep, with food, resting, not always being in activity, is really important to prevent that something like this happens.
Well, you do focus on that in your practice, body and mind. And tell us a little bit more about that and how it helps you manage on a daily basis.
Yeah, I have the fortune to been able to work only 2 days a week, and I have my own company and so on. So I've been able to, take a lot of walks with my dogs, and I do yoga or do meditation or mindfulness, and dancing is a way I I really come into my body and express my feelings, because we have a lot of feelings, and it's normal. It's like we are human beings and we have to feel the feelings, but we have to express them as we're in somehow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maria, what do you hope that clinicians take away from Restrained? And what do you hope people with lived experience feel when they read it?
Yeah, I know that people with lived experience feel comfort and courage to open up about what they have experienced, because many have written to me, and also physicians who have written it. They think it's a very important book to read to understand more about the situation for the patients, and also that there are other ways to communicate, to negotiate, and to co-work with the patient, because co-working and cooperation, or what do you say? It's possible most of the times, and there are reasons why people are sad or angry, upset or something, and I think Iceland also shows that when you educate the people who work in communication, in negotiating, you can prevent that these difficult situations with violence or those situations appear.
Do you think that open dialogue, Maria, is gaining momentum in the United States?
There are it's spread to 35 countries, but only in I guess in small. It's not a whole psychiatric care that has changed in that way. I think it's most in private care, I think. But there is a conference every year in the end of August in different countries, and last time it was in Finland in Rovaniemi, and this year it will be in Iceland. It's a conference about open dialogue, and last time it was 29 countries there represented, and there is an international big interest in this way of working, and I think a lot of psychiatrists also are interested in another way of working.
It sounds so hopeful. If you could change one thing about psychiatric care and how we treat medical or mental illness, what would it be, Maria?
It would be listen to the patient.
Listen to the patient. So
listen to the patient and to the story. It's always some story behind the way you react in a mental or emotional way. So it's not like you have to have medication because this is a brain disease. No, it's something that has happened. Maybe in your younger age or in the life situation you're right now or something. So it's so strange for me to not listen to the story.
Restrained, Maria, is really deeply moving and motivational. It's a success story. You've clearly risen above your experience, and despite all odds, you passed your medical exams. You're now a successful physician with a family, a business. You're leading a productive, positive life. What advice can you offer to patients of psychosis and to their families? Because we go on the journey with the patients.
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's helped to have a goal. Like I had a goal that I would become a doctor, and I didn't let it go. And I've had much support from my family, and without their love and without my friends' love, I wouldn't have been where I am today, because they have always treated me the way I was before my episode with psychotic symptoms. They've treated me like Maria.
Yes.
And then
So important.
that's the
So
key.
important.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's the key. And also both to the people who work in psychiatric care and to the families to still believe that this person will be all right. It's very important, and that shows in research as well, that if you believe you will, your family member will be all right, it's a bigger chance that this will happen. But also to the psychiatrists, it's very important to be aware of the side effects of the antipsychotic drugs, because everyone that gets these drugs will be affected cognitive, and they will have a little bit harder to think, and the personality will change, and the possibility or ability to motivate to do things will be lower.
Well, you rose above it, and you're really an example to everyone. Maria, why was it so important for you to share your story?
Yeah, I think it was because there were always sadness inside of me about this period.
Of course, of course. But as you said, you've gone on to live a productive life. You have a beautiful
Yeah,
family, and it's part of your journey. And we appreciate
yeah,
that you had the courage to
yeah,
share it with us. And also you've educated a great
yeah,
many of us about the open dialogue. And
yeah,
many of these tools we can use on a daily basis, and know that if any of us should encounter what you did, that there is a way out. We can survive
yeah,
it. We can process this, and we thank you.
yeah,
We thank you for that.
yeah, yeah. And also that is a reason why I wrote it as well, to spread this information about this working model that exists and have these fantastic results. When I got to know about it in 2022, I was writing a debate article about psychiatric intensive care, and I got to know about it. Then I also felt that I can't hold this information for myself.
Yeah.
It must reach more people.
Well, we thank you for that, Maria. And where can listeners purchase Restrained and discover more about your journey, read a little bit more about open dialogue, and educate ourselves?
Yeah, there's a film on YouTube that is made out of a guy who's called Daniel Mackler. He's visited Tornio and did a documentary about this method. It's very good. And I have a homepage that is myname.com. And the book is possible to buy in net book. What's it called? Amazon or
Amazon, yes.
or yeah. In Sweden, it's Adlibris and yeah.
Right, but if folks
Focus
go
the-
to your website, it's very easy to navigate.
Yeah,
They'll be able to
right,
find ways to purchase the book and find out about
right.
the video.
Yeah, yeah. In my homepage, they can reach me in email, and I can send this book. Yeah.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Maria, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Your journey is inspirational. We thank you. And thank you for sharing your experiences with open dialogue. And folks out there, please go and buy Restrained. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Lovely to hear. Yeah.
This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak, with the Gab Talks. Next podcast, we visit with Joseph House about his most recent novel, The Circus and the Atom. This is your hostess, Gabby. Until next time, keep on reading. Thank you.